Every day brings fresh evidence of the very real danger and damages that opioids crisis is wreaking on individuals and communities throughout our great nation. I wish I could stand here today and tell you that Montgomery County is immune from this epidemic. Unfortunately, I cannot do that. All you have to do is ask our first responders and our fire and rescue services, our police officers and others. Ask our frontline personnel at the Health and Human Services Office in our county. Death, addiction, broken families, broken lives. We are living this reality each and every day. As we continue to respond as a county to the critical needs created by this epidemic, I wanted to do more. In today's action, we are doing more. I decided to reach out and, if need be, force legal action against the manufacturers and distributors of opioids who manufacture these drugs and they market them in such a way that they really downplay the addictive nature of many of these drugs. Wanted them to be held accountable and, of course, to cease and desist the kinds of marketing and things that they are doing to start this process at the beginning that ultimately gets people addicted. This is why I asked today, and the council approved, the hiring of outside counsel to investigate the culpability of opioid producers and distributors, and to take, if need be, the necessary legal actions to force them to reimburse the county, but more importantly, to cease and desist the actions that they are doing in the marketing area, and help us to respond to the crisis that we are facing. Just what the lawsuit will look like is currently unfolding, but we will take the action, if necessary, to ensure that we stop this very addictive process. I want you to hear from our Council President, then we'll hear from Dr. Crowel in just a moment. First, I'm going to ask Council President Riemer to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. Really appreciate your taking this step, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Council to say we are fully behind this action. Last year, in 2016, there were 102 overdose deaths in Montgomery County, the majority due to prescription opioids. As the county executive said, there are broken families, broken lives, and no accountability. So that is why we have to take the step of bringing these companies into court, because many of these are privately held companies. They don't have the same kind of accountability that a lot of other companies do. And so we use the legal system to try to bring some accountability for this community. And I'm really pleased that we're doing this, and I hope that we are able to force a change in these very reprehensible business practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Crowel?
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. Wanted to say that in 2016, 84 people lost their lives to opiate addictions. And sadly, tragically, we are on pace to equal or exceed that number in 2017. We have the prescription opiates continue to play a vital role in that process, sometimes directly because of directly contributing to overdoses, sometimes in the histories of people on their path to becoming addicted. We see abuse of prescription drugs in children and adolescents. We see them sometimes in abuse of people who are prescribed medications, and that generally extending, taking them too long and taking too many of them over time. We also see children taking them out of their parents' medicine cabinets, or we see them being sold on the streets. The impacts of this are pretty significant, pretty severe. Our families and our communities are devastated by the losses they face. Our service system is challenged to meet the growing and rising need, and we see an increase in the number of folks who are arrested as a result of criminal behavior that's associated with their addictions. Our system is doing an incredible amount to try to combat this. We have police and fire and rescue and mental health and substance abuse and public health all working together along with our providers to try to respond to this need. But we have to work more. We have to work harder and more to get these prescription opiates off the streets. Holding the prescription industry, the pharmaceutical industry, accountable for this is a vital piece of what we have to do next. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Marc Hansen, who is the county attorney. Marc?
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. In light of what you have heard this morning, the county has retained the services of an outside law firm, Robbins, Geller, Rudman, and Dowd. Robbins Geller will, on behalf of Montgomery County, investigate and prosecute, as appropriate, the manufacturers and distributors of opioids who have contributed to the health crisis that has just been described to you. Robbins Geller is extremely well qualified to represent Montgomery County in this matter. They are a firm of over 200 lawyers with dozens of former prosecutors, both state and federal. They have experience in handling very complex and large cases that have resulted in the recovery of billions of dollars on behalf of investors and consumers. And let me anticipate perhaps one question that might be in your mind, and that is what the fee arrangement would be in a case like this. Robbins Geller has agreed to represent Montgomery County on a contingency fee basis and to pay the costs associated with this litigation. That means if there is no recovery, the county owes nothing, and Robbins Geller gets nothing. I wanted to make that clear because I was sure that was probably on some folks' minds. I would like to introduce two of the lawyers from Robbins Geller who are here with me today, Roxana Pierce and Ailish Begg, and I'm going to invite Ailish to make a few comments. Ailish?
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. We are honored to be selected by Montgomery County. Together with Montgomery County, we will address what has become the worst drug scourge in U.S. history and in this county. We will hold manufacturers and distributors accountable for their false marketing and for their failure to report suspicious sales as required by law. We intend, through this litigation, to force the manufacturers and the distributors to stop their unlawful sales practices and to pay to address the crisis that they created so as to help restore health right here at home in Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll have time for just a few questions. If you have any, please direct them, but we'll be around in case you need us on a little bit later on. Are there any questions from the overall audience at this point? Yes.
Yes. Given that some of these painkillers that have opiates in them have been approved for use by the FDA, what's going to be the basis of this case to go against these drug manufacturers?
It will be the false marketing and the failure to report suspicious sales. So even for approved drugs, defendants have made misleading statements to the public and to prescribers about the safety, the efficacy, and the dangers of these drugs.
Are there any specific manufacturers that you have in mind right now, and if so, are any of those in Montgomery County already?
There are a number of specific manufacturers and distributors that we have in mind: Purdue, Cephalon, Incest, Janssen, AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health. The details of the allegations you'll see in the coming complaint.
The timeline for action is fine.
Right.
So when will the complaint be filed?
Once we complete our investigation, we expect it to be a matter of weeks, early in the new year.
In the recovery, how much investment from the county already taking care of this issue? How much has it been the expense of the county?
The expense to the county there has been no expense to the county.
No, I'm talking about taking care of this particular issue.
I misunderstood. I apologize. Well, that's one of the issues that has to yet be teased out, that we're going to be working with Robbins Geller to look into the costs that have been incurred by the county's police department, fire department, our self-insurance fund, and our health department, and our jail. All of these have been impacted by the opioid crisis.
In addition to the direct sweat costs that we've incurred in Montgomery County for all of the portions that you just heard, I think it is equally important not only to try to recover the damages monetarily, but to cease and desist much of the marketing kinds of activities that are ongoing, because that's more important. We don't want just to collect the resources that we paid and the efforts that the county has made. We want to change the behavior, because that is what's getting people addicted. And so it's two parts of that, both the monetary aspect of it, but also change in behavior as it relates to the addictive nature of these drugs. Good. Great.
You had said before that Robbins Geller had done complex cases. Have they done cases taking these opioid manufacturers to court before?
Yes, we have. We've been retained by cities and counties in Michigan and in Florida, and are in negotiations with a number of cities, counties, and states across the country.
What's your success rate?
With respect to the opioid litigation, that litigation is still in its early stages. We have, for example, an off-label marketing case against Pfizer, in which we recovered more than $400 million from Pfizer just a few years ago.
Do you know where this case will be filed? Which court?
We're looking at both state and federal courts, and once, we'll make that determination in the coming weeks.
Question.
Can you explain specifically what you're investigating? Because you said that these companies have already broken laws. So can you explain why you're doing this investigation before you file some kind of complaint?
Sure. We anticipate filing a very comprehensive complaint against potentially 8 or 9 manufacturers and distributors. We have done a fair amount of that investigation already. We are just completing that investigation now, and once it's completed, we will, be prepared to file.